The rain fell heavy over the alien city of Varuna Prime, turning every street into a river of silver light. Neon signs blinked weakly, painting colors across the wet ground. The smell of metal and smoke hung in the air. It was close to midnight when Eli Ward, a tired human repair worker, walked home with his hands deep in his coat pockets. He had worked another 16-hour shift fixing cargo loaders in a factory that never slept. His boots were soaked, his stomach empty, and his back hurt. All he wanted was to reach his small room and collapse on the bed. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and most locals didn't even look at him. Some just stared, some whispered. As Eli turned into a narrow alley to shorten his way home, he suddenly heard a sharp cry. It was soft but full of fear, the kind of sound that made his heart stop. He froze for a second, listening. Then he heard voices. Two rough men speaking in a language he didn't know well, laughing cruelly. And then another cry, smaller, weaker. Eli moved closer, careful not to make noise. Under a flickering neon light, he saw a little alien girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, cornered against a wall. Her skin was pale blue, her small hands trembling as she clutched a broken pendant. The two alien thugs stood before her, one holding a knife, the other grabbing her by the arm. "Give it," one shouted, yanking at the pendant. The girl shook her head hard. "No, please. It's from my mother." Eli felt something inside him twist. He could walk away. He should walk away. But he couldn't. His body moved before his brain did. "Hey," he shouted, stepping into the light. "Leave her alone." The thugs turned. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. One laughed. "A human. You must be lost, friend." "Yeah," the other said with a grin. "Want to bleed for her?" Eli's heart pounded, but he didn't back down. He took a step forward, putting himself between the girl and the attackers. "She's just a kid," he said quietly. "You don't need to hurt her." The first thug raised his knife. "Move," he growled. Eli didn't move. He raised his hand slowly. "Walk away. This isn't worth it. Everything happened in seconds." The thug lunged. Eli tried to block, but the blade sank into his side. The second man stabbed him again, lower this time. Pain exploded through his body, hot and sharp. The little girl screamed. Eli's legs gave out, but he grabbed the first man's arm, twisting it enough to make the knife drop. Then he pushed him back with all his strength. The thugs, realizing the noise could draw patrol drones, cursed and ran into the shadows. Eli fell to one knee, blood soaking his shirt. The rain made it worse, cold drops mixing with red. The girl crawled toward him, tears running down her glowing cheeks. Stay back," Eli gasped, forcing a weak smile. "You're safe now." She shook her head. "You're hurt." He looked at her, those large, shining eyes filled with pure fear and innocence. "I'll be okay," he whispered, even though he knew it wasn't true. His vision blurred, and he started to fall. The girl grabbed his hand tightly. "Don't close your eyes," she begged. Somewhere far away, he heard sirens, the sound of security drones coming. He tried to speak again, but couldn't. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the little girl's pendant glowing brightly, and her face leaning over him, crying his name, though she didn't even know it. Then, everything went black. When Eli woke up, he was lying in a clean white room that smelled like medicine and ozone. A monitor beeped beside him. He tried to move, but pain shot through his body. His shirt was gone, replaced by medical fabric, and a soft robotic voice said, "Patient is stable. 2 stab wounds sealed." He blinked, confused. Where's the girl?" A nurse, an alien with soft silver skin, looked at him strangely. "What girl?" "The one in the alley," he said, trying to sit up. Small blue skin, bright eyes. The nurse hesitated. "There was no one. Security found only you." Eli fell silent. His hand moved to his bandaged side. The memory of that glowing pendant burned in his mind. That night, as the rain returned and wind hit his window, someone knocked softly on his door, twice. Eli frowned, slowly stood up, and opened it. 2 tall alien women stood outside in long dark robes trimmed with silver. Their eyes glowed softly under the moonlight. One of them bowed deeply, the other said quietly, "You saved our princess." And before Eli could speak, both of them knelt on the wet ground. Eli stood in silence as rain dripped from the edge of his doorway. The 2 alien women stayed kneeling in front of him, their silver robes shining under the dim streetlight. He didn't know what to say. His body still hurt from the wounds, his head still dizzy from the medicine. Finally, Eli spoke. Please, stand up. You don't have to kneel. The first woman lifted her eyes. They glowed faintly violet like soft flames. You took blades meant for royal blood, she said quietly. You saved the life of Princess Lyria. The Empress sent us. Eli blinked. The Empress? He almost laughed. You must have the wrong person. I'm just a mechanic. But then he saw it, the glowing crest stitched into their robes, a silver star with 3 curved wings. He had seen it before on government screens and military ships. It was the mark of the Varuna Empire, one of the strongest forces in the galaxy. His smile faded. You're serious, he whispered. The second woman stepped forward, her tone firm but respectful. The Empress requests your presence immediately. Your bravery cannot go unrewarded. Eli looked down at his bandaged hands. Rewarded? I didn't do it for that. I just saw a kid in danger. The first woman nodded slowly. That is exactly why she wishes to see you. Eli didn't want to go, but their eyes left no space for argument. Within the hour, a silver craft landed quietly near the building, sleek, almost soundless, floating on a cushion of blue light. Its doors opened like unfolding wings. Eli stepped inside hesitantly, the women following close behind. The cabin was pure glass and white metal. It smelled faintly of lavender and ozone. As the ship rose, the city lights became tiny specks below. He could see the rain falling beneath them like silver threads. Where are we going? He asked. The Sky Palace, one woman answered softly. It hovers above the planet's highest clouds. Eli stared through the window in disbelief. Above the clouds? You mean literally? Yes, she said with a faint smile. Only the royal bloodline and their chosen few may enter. Eli leaned back, heart pounding. He had never even been near a noble district. Now he was heading straight into the Empire's most guarded place. When the ship finally stopped, the view stole his breath. A massive palace of glass and light floated above the clouds, supported by energy pillars glowing gold. Waterfalls of pure light poured off the edges, vanishing into mist below. Dozens of smaller crafts glided around it like fireflies. The doors opened and the women led him inside. Guards in shining armor saluted them. The halls were vast and quiet, lined with silver statues and floating lanterns that gave off a soft hum. Every step Eli took echoed through the marble-like floor. At last, the women stopped before 2 huge doors. She is waiting, one said. The doors opened on their own, revealing a throne room filled with soft white mist. At the center stood the Empress. She was tall, elegant, her silver skin glowing under the light of floating crystals. Her long hair flowed like liquid metal, and her eyes, bright as moons, fixed on Eli the moment he entered. Eli froze. He had never felt smaller in his life. The Empress stepped down slowly from her throne. Human, she said in a soft, trembling voice. You are Eli Ward? Yes. Your Majesty, he managed to say, unsure if that was the right title. She nodded once. You took 2 wounds for my daughter, a stranger to you. Eli swallowed. Anyone would have done the same. No, the Empress said, shaking her head gently. No one did. You were the only one who moved while guards watched. She stopped just inches away from him, her eyes glistening. When I heard what you did, I could not believe it. A human, one of the outcasts from the outer colonies, shed his blood for Varuna royalty. Eli said nothing. The memory of the girl crying still burned in his mind. Then, to his shock, the Empress reached out and placed her hand gently over his chest, where the wound had been. You saved my child, she whispered. And for that, this empire is in your debt. Eli didn't know how to respond. He was just a worker, not a soldier, not a hero. But the moment felt heavy, like the air itself was watching. The Empress turned to her guards. Prepare the Hall of Honor. The galaxy will know of this man. As the guards saluted, Eli looked down at his trembling hands. Somewhere deep inside, he felt something new. Not pride, not fear, but the sense that his simple act had just changed the course of a world he barely understood. Outside the palace, thunder rolled across the clouds. Far below, the city lights flickered, and high above, a human's name was being written in the history of aliens. The great hall of the Sky Palace fell silent. The Empress stood before Eli, and for a long moment no one dared to breathe. Her silver eyes, glowing like twin moons, looked straight into his tired human face, a face marked by exhaustion, scars, and quiet strength. Come closer, she said softly. Eli hesitated, then took a few careful steps forward. His boots echoed on the shining floor. The air was warm, filled with the faint hum of energy from the floating crystals that lit the room. He had never been surrounded by such beauty, or such power. The Empress stopped in front of him. She reached up and gently touched the side of his face, her long fingers trembling slightly. "You are smaller than I imagined," she whispered. "And yet you stood before blades meant for my child." Eli lowered his head. "I just reacted," he said simply. She was scared. "I couldn't walk away." The Empress smiled sadly. "That is what makes it so hard to understand. In this empire, courage is spoken of often, but rarely lived." Behind her, guards stood at attention, unsure how to act. No one had ever seen the Empress speak so softly to anyone, much less to a human. Then, from behind the throne, a little voice broke the silence. "Mother?" Eli's eyes widened. From the mist stepped the little alien girl he had saved. She was wearing a small silver dress, her pale blue skin glowing softly under the light. Her big luminous eyes met Eli's, and she smiled. "Eli!" she cried, running forward. Before anyone could stop her, she threw her small arms around him. Eli froze for a second, surprised, then slowly hugged her back. She was real, warm, alive. "I told them you'd wake up," she said quickly, looking up at him. "I prayed every day." Eli chuckled weakly. "Guess your prayers worked, kid." The Empress covered her mouth, trying to hide her tears. The royal advisor shifted uncomfortably, not used to such a scene in the cold, perfect halls of power, but she couldn't stop herself. She stepped forward and knelt beside her daughter, her regal robes pooling around her. "Do you see my child?" she whispered. "This is what real strength looks like. Not armor, not power, not a crown, just heart." Eli looked away, embarrassed. "Please, Your Majesty, you don't have to say that." But the Empress only smiled through her tears. "I do, because no one ever showed my people this kind of kindness before. We rule 1,000 worlds, but not one of them teaches what you did in a single act." Then her expression grew serious. She rose to her full height, turning toward the advisors and guards watching from the edge of the room. "Let it be known," she said in a clear voice, "that the human Eli Ward is not a stranger in our empire. From this day forth, he will be known as the Guardian of the Crown." Gasps filled the hall. A human, honored with a royal title. It was unheard of. The little girl clapped her hands happily. "Does that mean he stays?" The Empress smiled faintly. "If he wishes." Eli stepped back, overwhelmed. "No, I can't. I'm no guardian. I'm just a worker. I fix machines, not kingdoms." The Empress tilted her head, studying him carefully. "That is why you are worthy of it. The ones who never seek power are the ones who can handle it." As the court slowly bowed in respect, Eli felt the weight of all eyes on him. He didn't feel proud and just lost. He had come from nothing, fought for nothing, and somehow ended up in the center of a world that made no sense. He looked at the little girl again. Her smile was so bright it almost hurt to see. He sighed softly. "I just did what anyone should do." The Empress turned away, looking out through the glass walls of the palace where clouds drifted like rivers. "Then our world should learn from you," she whispered. Because not many would. A moment later her tears fell, soft silver drops that glowed as they touched the marble floor. The palace lights dimmed, as if even the walls respected her grief and gratitude. And in that silence, something strange happened. The energy flowing through the room shimmered brighter, almost alive, as if the palace itself bowed to the human's courage. When the ceremony ended, Eli was escorted to a guest chamber with walls made of soft light. From the balcony, he could see the endless clouds below and the star-filled sky above. It didn't feel real. He sat down, running a hand over the smooth railing. "Guardian of the Crown," he muttered to himself. "Yeah, right." But in another part of the palace, two advisors whispered in the dark. "The Empress's heart is clouded," one said. "If this human wins her trust, everything changes." The other replied coldly. "Then he cannot be allowed to live." Outside, the rain began again, quiet, endless, and heavy, just like the fate waiting for Eli Ward. Eli woke to the soft hum of alien music drifting through the walls. For a moment he forgot where he was. The glowing ceiling, the floating lamps, the silk sheets that seemed to breathe. Then he remembered the Sky Palace, the Empress, the title they had given him. He sat up slowly, his body still sore from the stab wounds. His mind replayed the night before. The Empress's tears, the little girl's smile, and the whispers that followed when he left the hall. Something about it didn't feel right. As he stood, the door slid open without sound. A tall alien servant entered, bowing low. "Guardian Ward," he said, voice calm but distant. "Her Majesty requests your presence in the Hall of Suns." Eli blinked. "That says me?" "Yes," the servant replied. "You have been granted audience alone." Eli followed him through long corridors made of glass and gold, his reflection walking beside him. Outside the walls, lightning moved slowly through the clouds, glowing like veins of silver. Guards stood at every corner, their armor shining white. Some looked curious, others looked cold. When they reached the Hall of Suns, the doors opened into a vast circular chamber. Sunlight poured from an open ceiling, and in the middle of the room stood the Empress, surrounded by small floating drones that carried boxes, documents, and glowing seals. "Come forward." "Eli," she said warmly. He did. "You honor me with your visit." "Your Majesty," he said, still awkward with the words. The Empress smiled. "You saved what is most precious to me. The least I can do is return something to you." One of the drones floated closer, carrying a small silver cube with golden edges. It hovered between them. "This," she said softly, "is the key of Varuna. It grants full protection under the crown's name. No law, no soldier, no order may harm you while you carry it." Eli stared at it. "You're giving me a royal key?" She nodded. "And one more thing." She clapped her hands once. Two attendants entered carrying a thin case. Inside lay a glowing white card. "An identification code," the Empress said. "It gives you passage to any planet in our system. You will never want for food or shelter again." Eli's throat tightened. "I don't deserve this. I didn't save her for rewards." "I know," the Empress said gently. "That is why you deserve it most." For a long moment they stood in silence. The only sound was the hum of the palace. Then, from the shadows behind the throne, a tall figure stepped out, the same advisor who had whispered the night before. His voice was smooth like ice. "Your Majesty, may I speak?" The Empress turned. "You may." The advisor bowed slightly but didn't hide his glare at Eli. "While the human's bravery is admirable, his presence here may cause political unrest. Already some nobles question your decision. They fear that granting a foreigner such power will weaken the throne." The Empress's expression hardened. "Fear has always been the language of small minds. He is not my weakness, and he is my reminder." The advisor pressed on, lowering his tone. "Still, my queen, he could be in danger. Enemies of the crown may try to silence him. For his safety, perhaps it is best he returns to his home world." Eli noticed the faint smile that didn't reach the man's eyes. He could feel the threat hidden behind the polite words. The Empress turned back to Eli. "He is right about one thing," she said quietly. "You are not safe here. What do you mean?" Eli asked. She stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. "There are those who do not forgive kindness. To them, a human who bleeds royal blood into their soil is a stain. You must leave until I can ensure your protection." Eli frowned. "Leave? But what about the girl?" "My daughter is safe here," the Empress said. "But you are not." She hesitated, then removed a small crystal pendant from her neck, the twin of the one her daughter had worn. She placed it in Eli's palm. "This will guide you if you ever lose your way. Keep it close and it will find me." Her fingers lingered over his hand, and Eli, "Trust no one who speaks too softly." That night he was moved quietly from the palace. No farewell ceremony, no crowd, only a silent escort of guards through hidden corridors. As the skyship descended through the thick clouds, Eli looked out at the glowing city below. For the first time he saw armed patrols moving through the streets. Something was wrong. The Empress's voice echoed in his mind. There are those who do not forgive kindness. When the ship landed near the outer edge of the city, a soldier handed him a pack. "You'll find work here. Keep your head down." Eli nodded, stepping into the neon-lit street. Behind him, the ship vanished into the fog, and somewhere high above, in the Palace of Light, the Empress stood at her balcony watching the storm gather. She whispered to herself, "Protect him, my child, before they make him vanish." Days turned into weeks. Eli Ward tried to disappear. He found a small room in the outer sector, a noisy district filled with smoke, cheap food, and the smell of oil. He worked quietly at a junk repair shop, fixing old drones for travelers. To the world, he was just another nameless human trying to survive. But whispers had already begun to spread. "Did you hear?" someone said in a bar. "They say the Empress bowed to a human." "No human can make a queen cry," another voice replied. "Then find him," a third voice whispered. "And end him." Eli didn't know that his face was already being shared through hidden channels and that nobles had placed a silent bounty on him. Not for money, but for silence. One evening, Eli finished work late. He wiped his hands on a rag, looking out through the window as thunder rolled above the towers. He felt that same uneasy pull in his chest again, the sense that someone was watching. He turned off the lights and stepped into the rain-soaked streets. Neon signs reflected off puddles. Around him, the crowd moved fast, merchants, aliens, and off-world traders shouting in a dozen tongues. But in that noise, Eli heard something wrong. A soft mechanical click, then another. He froze. Instinct told him to move, but before he could, a pulse shot hit the wall next to his head, leaving a smoking hole. He ducked and ran into the alleys. His boots splashed through the water, his heart pounding hard. More pulse shots echoed behind him, blue flashes lighting up the dark. He turned a corner, hiding behind a crate. His chest ached where the scars still healed. He peeked out. 3 figures in black armor were moving fast, scanning the area with red sensors. Their armor bore no royal mark. Mercenaries. So it begins, he thought. He moved quietly through the maze of alleys until he reached an old train yard. Rusted machines stood like metal skeletons under the rain. He hid inside a broken cargo pod, pressing a hand against his ribs. His breath came fast and shallow. He looked down at his chest pocket. The crystal pendant the Empress had given him pulsed faintly, like it was alive. "It had never done that before. What are you trying to tell me?" he whispered. Suddenly, a small blue projection appeared above the crystal, the faint outline of a little girl's face. Her voice was soft and familiar.
"Eli, are you safe?"
Eli froze. "Lyria." The tiny hologram smiled. "Mother said you'd be watched. You have to go to the old sectors. There's someone waiting for you." "Who?" he asked quickly, but the hologram flickered. "Hurry, there—" The light vanished. Footsteps echoed outside. Eli clenched his jaw, gripping a metal bar from the floor. "You picked the wrong human," he muttered. The first mercenary entered the pod, scanning with a red beam. Eli swung the bar hard, hitting the helmet. Sparks flew. The mercenary fell back, dazed. Eli rolled out, ducking another shot. He grabbed a dropped blaster, fired once. The bolt struck a second merc's shoulder, sending him crashing into a pile of scrap. The third one tried to flank him, but Eli used the broken train doors for cover, moving faster than they expected. Years of working in mechanical tunnels had made him clever with space and sound. After a short, chaotic fight, silence returned. Only the sound of rain hitting metal. Eli dropped the bar, breathing heavily. "So much for staying invisible," he said under his breath. He left the yard before dawn, blending again into the city. The pendant pulsed weakly now, as if guiding him north. He followed its glow through the twisting streets until he reached the edge of the old sector. A place forgotten by time, abandoned towers, broken bridges, and silence. There, in a narrow passage, a small light blinked from an old door. He knocked twice. The door opened just a crack, and a familiar voice whispered, "You made it." Eli froze. Standing there was the little alien girl, Lyria, wearing a dark cloak, her bright eyes full of relief. How did you find me?" he asked. She smiled shyly. "I told you I prayed, remember?" Eli knelt to her level. "You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." She shook her head. "I had to come. Mama said they'd come for you. But I brought this." She held out something shining in her small hand, and her pendant, broken but glowing with the same light as his. When she brought the 2 crystals close, they hummed and fused together, creating a new beam of light that shot upward, projecting a map in midair, a series of stars and a single glowing mark far away. "What is that?" Eli whispered. "The place Mama said to find before they find you," Lyria said. "She called it the sanctuary." Eli stared at the map, feeling the weight of the storm closing around him. He knew this was no longer just about survival. It was about finishing something the Empress had started, something that could unite or destroy everything. And now, he wasn't alone. Rain dripped softly from broken ceilings as Eli and the little alien girl, Lyria, sat in the dim room of the old sector. The air smelled like rust and dust. Outside, lightning flashed across the skyline, painting her face in brief light. She sat cross-legged, holding the glowing pendant between her small hands. Eli watched her quietly. He had seen strange machines before, but this pendant, half crystal, half living light, felt different. It pulsed softly, in rhythm with their heartbeats. "Where did your mother get this?" Eli asked gently. Lyria looked up. She said it was from before our time. From the first builders. It holds the code of the crown. Eli frowned. "The code of the crown? You mean like royal tech?" She nodded. "It's more than tech. It's a memory." The pendant glowed brighter as she spoke. A thin beam of blue light rose from it and spread across the floor, forming a circular pattern of symbols. Then slowly a voice filled the room. Deep, calm, ancient. "Blood joined in pain shall open the gates of unity." Eli froze. "What the hell is that?" Lyria smiled faintly. "The prophecy Mama told me. It means someone outside our kind. Someone who bled for us. Will open the way to peace." Eli's eyes widened. "You think that's me?" The girl tilted her head. "The pendant only reacts to you. Maybe it's trying to show you the path." The symbols on the floor shifted into a map. Lines of light connecting across stars and planets, until one symbol pulsed brighter than the rest. A temple-shaped mark appeared on a world covered in green clouds. "That's it," Lyria whispered. "The sanctuary." Eli studied it. "Your mother told you to come here?" "Yes," she said softly. "She said if anything happens, I must find you, because only your blood can open the sanctuary." Eli ran a hand through his hair. "I'm no hero, kid. I just got lucky. I can't even fix my life, let alone open ancient doors." Lyria stood and looked at him with those glowing eyes that seemed to carry galaxies inside. "You didn't save me because you were strong," she said. "You saved me because you were kind. That's what the sanctuary needs." Her words hit him harder than the knives ever had. They didn't have time to rest. Outside, drones buzzed through the rain, scanning the district. The pendant flickered again, warning them. Eli grabbed his bag. "We need to move now." They slipped through the alleyways, the glow of the pendant hidden under Eli's jacket. The city's sky bridges stretched above them like giant ribs of steel. Every sound felt louder than it should. The splash of their boots, the hum of passing air cars, the distant echo of alarms. As they reached the edge of the old sector, a shadow moved ahead. A tall figure stepped out from behind a pillar. It was the advisor, the same man who had warned the Empress about Eli. "So," the man said smoothly, his eyes cold as stone, "the human hides with royal blood. How poetic." Eli pushed Lyria behind him. "You again. Guess you weren't finished talking." The advisor's smile was thin. "I told the Empress you were dangerous. She didn't listen. Now I must fix her mistake." His hand moved, and a weapon unfolded from his wrist, humming with blue energy. Eli didn't hesitate. He grabbed a metal rod from the ground and swung as the first shot fired. The blast hit the wall beside him, throwing sparks. Lyria screamed, clutching the pendant. It flared bright white, blinding everyone for a second. When the light faded, the advisor was gone, vanished into the shadows. Eli breathed hard, kneeling beside the girl. "Are you okay?" She nodded weakly. He wanted the pendant. He called it the key. Eli looked down at the glowing crystal. "Then whatever's at that sanctuary." "It's something big," Lyria whispered. "Mama said if the wrong hands find it first, both our worlds will fall." Eli looked out toward the horizon where storm clouds gathered, lightning crawling through them like veins. He tightened his grip on the pendant. "Then we're not letting that happen." That night, they reached the spaceport at the city's edge. Broken ships lined the docks, and the air smelled of fuel and ozone. Eli found an old freighter still running, its pilot half asleep at the controls. He showed the pendant, the crystal's light reflected in the pilot's eyes. "I need a route to the planet marked here," Eli said. The pilot frowned. "That system's forbidden. No one goes there." Eli met his gaze. "We're going." The pilot hesitated, then nodded. "Get in before I change my mind." As the ship lifted into the stormy sky, Lyria leaned against Eli's arm, whispering, "Do you think Mama's watching?" Eli looked out through the window, watching lightning fade into the black of space. "If she is," he said softly, We'd better give her something worth watching. The stars stretched into long lines as they entered hyperspace, and behind them, far above Varuna Prime, the Empress stood at her balcony, her eyes glowing with silent tears. "The prophecy has begun," she whispered. The stars looked endless through the ship's glass window. They glowed like a million quiet witnesses as the old freighter cut across the darkness. Inside, Eli sat in silence while the engines hummed softly. Across from him, Lyria slept, the glowing pendant still clasped in her tiny hand. Eli watched her and sighed. She looked peaceful, but he could see the faint shadows under her eyes. The exhaustion, the fear. She was just a child, yet she carried the hope of an empire. And him? He was a tired man who just wanted a quiet life, but fate had other plans, he whispered to himself. 2 knife stabs, 1 small girl, and now I'm flying to save galaxies. How did it come to this? The ship trembled slightly as they entered orbit above the green-clouded planet, marked on the pendant's map. The pilot glanced back nervously. "That's the sanctuary," he said. "No one's been there in centuries. You sure about this, human?" Eli looked at the pendant in Lyria's hand. "Yeah," he said. "I'm sure." When they stepped onto the planet's surface, the air was heavy and warm. Strange trees grew from the glowing soil, their roots whispering like voices. In the distance stood the sanctuary, a giant temple carved into black stone, its gates covered in alien writing. Lyria held Eli's hand tightly. "Mama said this place was built before empires. It listens to blood and truth." Eli nodded, taking a slow breath. "Then let's hope it listens to us." They approached the entrance, and the pendant began to hum louder, its light spreading over the carvings. The symbol shifted, rearranging into a single sentence. Lyria read softly, "The one who bled for no reward shall open the way." Eli hesitated. His hand went to the scar on his side, the old wound from the alley. He didn't know how, but he felt the pendant pulling him forward. "Eli," Lyria whispered, "it wants you to touch it." He pressed his palm against the stone door. The pendant flared white and pain shot through his hand, sharp but not cruel. His blood, glowing faint red, flowed into the carvings, filling every line until the doors began to move. With a deep, ancient groan, the gates opened. Inside, the temple glowed with golden light. Floating crystals formed paths in the air, leading to a giant circular chamber. In its center stood a holographic figure, tall, cloaked in light. It spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from every wall. "Human of the Red World," it said, "you carry the pain that binds 2 peoples. You have fulfilled the prophecy." Eli looked around, startled. "What prophecy?" "The one written by the first builders," the voice said. "They saw a future where fear would divide stars, until one would bleed for another, not as king or soldier, but as brother." Lyria stepped forward. "Can you save my mother?" The figure looked at her gently. "Child of Varuna, your mother's heart already carries the seed of unity, but without him," it pointed to Eli, "your empire will fall to its own pride." Eli shook his head. "I'm no savior," the hologram smiled faintly. "Exactly. That is why you were chosen." Suddenly the ground trembled. A shadow appeared at the entrance, and the advisor flanked by armored soldiers. His voice rang through the hall. "Step away from the altar. The key belongs to the Empire, not to a human." Lyria gasped and hid behind Eli. Eli clenched his fists. "You're too late." The pendant's light grew until it filled the room, surrounding Eli and Lyria in a sphere of warmth. The advisor shouted, firing his weapon, but the energy vanished into the glow. Eli looked down. His wounds had opened again, glowing red and white. The light spread through his veins, connecting to the pendant. The holographic figure raised its hand. "The blood of sacrifice binds the world of metal and the world of heart." The light exploded outward. The soldiers froze, their weapons falling. In the distance, across the stars, energy waves reached the sky palace. The Empress looked up from her throne as the same light surrounded her, the same warmth her daughter once carried. She whispered through tears, "Eli." When the light faded, the advisor and his soldiers were gone, vanished like dust. The temple doors stood open and the air was calm. Eli fell to one knee, exhausted but smiling faintly. "Guess it listened." Lyria knelt beside him, crying. "Don't go, Eli." He touched her cheek gently. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." The pendant floated from his hand. glowing one last time before dividing into two smaller crystals. One settled on her heart, the other faded into his chest. The hologram's voice whispered, "Two wounds, two worlds, one bond," and then silence. When Lyria opened her eyes again, she was back in the Sky Palace. Her mother, the Empress, held her close. The pendant glowed between them, soft and warm. "Where is he?" the Empress whispered. Lyria looked at the stars. "He's part of the light now." High above the clouds, the sanctuary shone like a new sun. And across every world under Varuna's banner, humans and aliens paused to watch, because for the first time, the two lights of different bloodlines had joined. And somewhere in the quiet heart of the galaxy, a legend began to spread, about the human who took 2 knife stabs for a child and healed the wounds of 2 worlds.